And a guy we've talked about in the show numerous times too.
You were a fan of him coming out of the draft.
Hendon Hooker. Listen,
Yeah,
I mean, listen. Sometimes you just need a good hooker. That's what Hendon Hooker could be. So again, to refresh everybody the story of him. So he was coming out of college, Tennessee, same year that Jalen Hyatt went off. This was his quarterback. He was looked at as a guy who was going to be potentially a second, maybe third round quarterback with kind of like a Jackson Dart this year, like not the top guy, but a guy that you go, maybe I can develop him. You know, not that a play style is different, but I mean that kind of, you know, mentality there. So towards the end of the year, he tears his ACL. And yeah, that's the end of that because he didn't play that in first year at all. You know, the Lions did put in a third round pick for him. And I think they kind of thought of him as insurance if Jared Goff didn't succeed. And
who's been playing
he has definitely succeeded. So now here's the difference, because a lot of what I said about Joe Milton can be said here. You could sit there and say, okay, well, here's a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience at all in the NFL. 3 games this year he played in, by the way, 6 completions on 9 attempts, 62 yards. Wouldn't exactly say it's a great resume. But here's the thing. He's going into his 3rd year, I believe, now in the league.
Correct.
It's a 4-year contract. At a certain point, especially he's going to be 27 years old next year. At a certain point, if you are the Lions, it's a good move within the players to say, you know what, Hendon Hooker, we're going to give you a chance to go somewhere else and be a quarterback because we got our guy here. Otherwise, you stay here another 2 years, you're a backup for 2 more years.
Yeah.
And maybe someone takes a shot at him. You know, I don't know the Giants' interest in him before the injury. You know, I don't know that part of it. But I feel like this is a situation where if you can get a guy cheap, you get his 3rd round pick he was back then. I don't know what you'd have to give up to get him. But again, I put him in the same ballpark as Joe Milton. I wouldn't give up much. I'd give up a 4th round pick for him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even give a 3rd round that they took him for because he's now 2 years into it. And the biggest red flag I have with him is the Lions just signed Teddy Bridgewater for the playoffs. I'm sorry, if you have a lot of confidence in Hendon Hooker, you are not signing Teddy Bridgewater to be your backup. Not gonna.
Flag.
That's a huge flag for me. And like I said, so if I can get him cheap, like a 4th, 5th, maybe I take the shot. But I think he's a guy that just isn't going to be, personally. And because you don't even hear buzz. Like, you still hear about, maybe you traded for Hendon Hooker, kind of like we're talking about now. But you don't hear NFL buzz like, Hendon Hooker looks really great in practice. Hendon Hooker's doing this. Hendon Hooker's doing, like, it's not that kind of build-up. It's not. So just something tells me he ain't worth the hype and he ain't worth the cost at that point there for draft pick-wise. Now, salary-wise, he's well worth the cost. He'd only be $1 million for the Giants if they traded for him next year, 1.1 the year after. So really, really cheap. And maybe reuniting him and Jalen Hyatt gets the Jalen Hyatt magic going. I don't know. But I think both of them are just busts, to be honest.
Most likely.
The Lions are doing a very good job in keeping the media away from his works. So,
if you like that clip, then you will love the full episodes too. Find us on your favorite podcast app and look for us on all your favorite social media platforms.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please.